to Sarah's Stamping Retreat. Today we're going to be creating 5 different cards using this Artfully layered stamp set. So you've got these nice leafy images, this kind of background piece here. And you've got thank you, happy birthday wishes, sending all the hugs and hey there. Then this coordinating die set. So you've got these pieces that coordinate with these stamps. You've got outline pieces and you've got pieces that cut into the paper to create textures. You've got these little leaves, this border. And we've got these papers. So this is a 12 by 12 paper pack and you get 2 of each design. So you've got this with this on the back. You've got these leaves with the stripes on the back. You've got this one with these on the back. You've got this with this on the back. We've got this with this on the back. And we've got this with this on the back. So they're mostly quite vibrant, leafy type things on one side and more subtle patterns on the other side. And then we've also got the coordinating vellum. So this is another 12 by 12 pack with 2 of each design. So we've got the black text and then you've got the white text. So the white shows up really nicely if you combine it with the darker coloured cardstocks. So then we've got this kind of like white, more handwriting text and the black version. And then we've got the black map and the white version. So I'm going to start off with a really simple DL card. So this is a piece of thick basic white cardstock and it measures 7 3/4 inches by 8 1/4 inches. I've scored and folded that in half, and then I've die cut a load of leaves from the die set. So I've cut these ones in Evening Evergreen. I've cut some of these ones from the vellum with the black text on, and I've cut these ones from Just Jade cardstock. So I'm going to just glue those along the side here. I'm going to glue those and leave a bit of a space for this because I'll kind of want that to overlap. So I'm going to glue these ones down here. So I'm not putting on loads of glue, just a little tiny bit, just so that it doesn't spill out over the sides. And then I'm going to glue these, but I'm going to be especially careful with the glue on these because we don't want loads of glue showing through. So then I'm just going to turn this over and chop off all the bits that are hanging over the sides. And I've got this leaf here that I've just cut off. So I'm just going to add that just up here. So then I've just got a small strip of Evening Evergreen cardstock that is 8.25 by about just under half of an inch. And I'm just going to pop that down the side. So then I'm going to use this thank you to heat emboss my sentiment. So I'm going to stamp it in the Versamark ink. And I'm going to pour on my white embossing powder. And then I'm just going to heat up the embossing powder with my heat tool. Then I'm going to pop this on up on a few dimensionals. And then we've got these faux sea glass shapes that come as part of the suite as well. I'm going to scatter a few of those around as well. I think I'm going to do mostly this colour and this colour because those are the colours that I've used in this, whereas I haven't used any of this colour in here. So there's our first card completed. So then for my next card, I've got an A6 Calypso Coral card blank. So that is 8 1/4 by 5 7/8 inches, scored and folded in half. So then I've cut this piece of the paper from the pack, and that is 2 3/4 by 5 7/8 inches. And then this piece of Evening Evergreen cardstock is 3 inches by 5 7/8 inches. So those are all going to layer on there, but I want to do some stamping on here first. So I'm going to use these two stamps, this one and this one. I'm going to stamp over these. It's not going to be perfectly aligned, you can't see through these stamps, but it's kind of going to add a bit of abstract like texture to it. So I'm going to use my Evening Evergreen ink with this one, and I'm going to stamp that on here. So you can see it's not accurately placed or anything like that, but it just adds a bit of added interest to it. And then I want to add a bit of Calypso Coral as well to tie it into the background, but I don't want it to be too in your face. So I'm going to just use it, and I'm going to stamp it off onto here first, and then I'm going to stamp it over here. And I'm going to do the same with this one, so I'm going to stamp it off first, and then I'm going to stamp it over here, just to bring a bit of that colour into the paper. So this grid paper is actually available to purchase on the website. I really like it for making cards on, because I can use it as scrap paper, I can use it for measuring things, and I quite like using the grid lines to place things as well. It's got inches on one side and centimetres on the other, so you could use either side depending on what you're most comfortable with. So then I'm going to add this onto my piece here. Then I'm going to use the outside of pieces of my dimensionals just to pop that panel up on my card. I'm going to save these thinner parts down here for sentiments because they're really good for behind sentiments. So I'm just going to pop some the normal dimensionals on as well. So I think I might actually offset that slightly, put it close to this side. Now I'm just going to heat emboss the Happiest Birthday Wishes sentiment onto a scrap of Calypso Coral cardstock. So I'm going to use white embossing powder again. So let's just melt that. Then I've cut that down. So I'm just going to pop some dimensionals onto the back of it. That's our second card finished. So for my third card, I've cut some of our shapes out of a piece of this paper that is 4 1/8 by 5 7/8 inches, so that I can use it on the front of an A6 basic white cardstock. So I've cut the pieces out, and then I want to stamp in the gaps. So I'm going to stamp here. So this is the Evening Evergreen ink. And then with that one, let's turn that round and do it here as well. And then I'm going to use this one in the Just Jade in here. And then I've die cut this piece out of the Just Jade that I'm going to pop there. So then let's glue this piece on. So I've got these pieces which came out when I die cut the surrounding paper. So I'm just going to pop them back in. And then I'm going to glue in this die cut. And then I can glue this piece back in there as well. So I'm just going to chop off the side of this die cut. Then I'm going to use this Happy Festive Birthday Wishes again. And once again I'm going to heat emboss it with white embossing powder. And let's heat that up. So then I took a rectangle of Just Jade cardstock and I put it in with this a few times. So I've put that in 3 times, once there, and once here, to make like a textured background. So I'm going to layer that up with that and pop that in that corner. So I'm going to glue that onto the Just Jade piece. And then I'm going to pop some dimensionals on the back. And I'm just going to pop that there. That looks really nice and textured, and I'm just going to add some of these faux sea glass shapes around. Then that's our third one sorted. So then for my next card, I've got a Just Jade DL card blank. So there is 7 3/4 by 8 1/4 inches scored and folded in half. And then I've got a piece of Calypso coral cardstock that measures 3 inches by 8 1/4 inches. And this one measures 2 3/4 inches by 8 1/4 inches in Just Jade. And out of this, I have cut this leafy die 3 times. So I've cut it out of Just Jade 3 times, and I've also cut it out of Evening Evergreen 3 times. So we're going to use the outside of this and the insides, and then we're just going to use the outline on the Evening Evergreen. So let's do this panel first. So I'm just going to glue the Just Jade panel on top of the Calypso Coral panel. And then I'm going to glue in the Evening Evergreen outlines. And then this is the spare bit from the inside of the Just Jade leaves, and I'm just going to slot that in. I'm going to put some glue on the back. And you'll notice actually that I used Just Jade for these leaves here. These are actually the pieces that I cut out when I was cutting this Just Jade background. So I've used them on another card already. Then we've got our cute panel done, and I'm just going to stamp our thank you sentiment with Evening Evergreen ink onto a scrap of Calypso Coral cardstock. I'm just going to do that again because that's not quite as crisp as I'd like it to be. And then I'm just going to cut this off at an angle. So then I'm going to glue this onto our card. And then I'm going to pop this up on some dimensionals. So there we go. So for this next card, I'm going to use a 5-inch basic white card blank. So that's made using thick basic white cardstock. I'm going to use my stamp apparatus because I want to place my sentiment right around the edge. So I'm going to line it up 2 squares from here and 2 squares from there. So I don't want it quite in the corner because it doesn't stamp quite so well there. I'm going to line up this thank you in this corner of my card, and then I'm going to pick that up. So then I'm going to use my Evening Evergreen ink, and I'm going to stamp that in this corner. Then I'm going to turn my card 90 degrees, line it back up there so that it's 2 by 2. Ink that up again and stamp it again. And I'm keeping doing this, turning it 90 degrees each time. And by using my stamp apparatus, it means I've got it in exactly the same place in each corner of the card. Then I've got a 3.5-inch square of Calypso Coral cardstock and a 3.25-inch square of basic white cardstock. So then I'm going to use this texty stamp, and I'm going to use the Evening Evergreen ink, but I don't want it full on, so I want to stamp it off first, and then I'll stamp it on here so that I get a lighter shade of it. And I'm just going to stamp that all over. And then I'm doing a few bits that are 3rd generation ink, kind of filling in the gaps, so I've got quite a lot of texture then. So I've got my 2nd and 3rd generation on there, so I've got 2 tones of ink on there. Now I'm going to come in with this gorgeous big leaf and the Calypso Coral ink. And I'm going to stamp that right across here. And then I'm going to glue this piece that I've die cut from Evening Evergreen cardstock over the top. So let's glue these layers together a second. So then let's pop this up on some dimensionals. And then there's our final card complete. So let's bring them all in. So there are today's cards. I really hope that you enjoyed today's cards. If you did, I'd appreciate you clicking like below, and you can also press subscribe if you'd like to see future videos. If you press the bell button and select all, then you also get notifications from YouTube when a new video is available. All of the products that we've used for today's cards are listed in the description below, and there's also a host code there. So if you pop the host code into your basket before you check out, then I'll send you a free gift after the end of the month. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope to see you again soon.